Sharon Salzberg has been meditating for more than 40 years and teaching since the 70s when she co-founded the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. Welcome, Sharon. It's so nice to have you here.
Well, thank you.
So today we're going to be talking about Metta, loving kindness meditation. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what that is?
Okay. So Metta, M-E-T-T-A, is a word from Pali, which is the language of the original Buddhist texts. And it's usually translated as loving kindness. Probably a deeper translation of it is a sense of friendship. So the practice, the methodology of loving kindness meditation is deepening the art of friendship toward yourself and ultimately toward all of life. And I like to think of it as a deep, deep sense of connection, a powerful recognition that we live in an interconnected universe, that we're not so alone and cut off, however we might sometimes feel.
I really like the way that you had said that it's like feelings of friendship. That's really, I hadn't heard that before. It's a very nice way of thinking about it. And then, like you said, to have it so that we're interconnected. So where does that tradition come from? Where does this practice come from?
It's from the original teachings of the Buddha. He gave a very beautiful discourse or sermon on Metta, basically to the recommendation to suffuse all the world, those whom we know, those whom we don't know, near and far, and all beings everywhere with this force of loving kindness.
I mean, it sounds like it's very, maybe we should talk a little bit about what the actual practice is, and then we can, and then let's talk about what maybe some of the benefits are, and then we'll actually do it.
Okay.
So what's the actual practice of this?
Well, you know, of course, there are many varieties and stylistic differences, and the way I like to do it is you choose certain phrases, and these phrases are going to contour or guide how we pay attention, which I really think in many ways loving kindness practice is like an awareness or attention training. We think about maybe all those people we normally look right through, we ignore, we discount, we disregard, and imagine looking at them instead of through them. Or if you're the kind of person who at the end of the day pretty well looks back at your day to evaluate, like, how did I do today? And let's just say you're the kind of person who only remembers the mistakes you made and the things you didn't do quite right, or let's just say...
Are you speaking to me personally?
Well, I was speaking to a lot of people personally, including myself. So, you know, maybe so much so that our whole sense of who we are and all that we will ever be just collapses around that stupid thing we said at lunch at the meeting. So we shift our attention not to pretend we didn't do anything wrong, that we're absolutely perfect, but to include that which we might normally ignore, like, what's the good within me? Like, anything else happened today besides that really stupid thing I said? So we're kind of broadening and opening the way we pay attention. Or you think about meeting a stranger, let's say in New York City, in an elevator, you know, those places where, at least when I grew up in New York City, and of an age where, you know, the conditioning was like, you don't look at anybody, you don't talk to anybody, and you kind of spin around, stare at the door. And, you know, every once in a while, I'll be in an elevator here and someone will talk to me, and my first kind of visceral response is like, ooh, what do you want, you know? And then I remember, I can just be with them, right? I can pay attention to them. I'm not going to lose anything. It's not really threatening. You know, so there are ways in which we consciously shift how we pay attention so that it is more open, more inclusive, more present. And that's sort of the essence of the way the loving kindness practice works. So the mechanics of how it works is that we choose certain phrases that are like the gift. That's the offering. It's considered in many ways a practice of generosity. We're offering a different quality of attention. And so we choose those phrases, very simple phrases. They need to be quite general because you want to basically be able to use the same phrases whether you're offering to yourself or to others. And beginning with ourselves, we just gently repeat the phrases over and over again. When our attention wanders, as it inevitably will, we gently let go and just come back to the phrases. And that's really how the practice is done.
So So we pick these phrases. Can we pick some now? Can we talk about what some of
Yeah.
those phrases might be?
Very common phrases would be may I, which becomes may you,
Mm-hmm.
and then may all. May I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. That last, may I live with ease, means in the things of day-to-day life, like livelihood and family, may not be such a struggle. May I live with ease. Or may I be safe, may I have mental happiness, may I have physical happiness, may I have ease of well-being. This is like the song of the heart, so it needs to be something that's pleasing to you. A lot of times people like a word that, like peace, you know, may I be peaceful, which becomes may you be peaceful. So it's really up to you, but what you don't want is to be like constantly thinking, trying to think of a new phrase, like a new person comes to mind, and you think, what about you? You know, so that's why they need to be very general so we can stay focused.
Right. So we should pick them in advance and sort of work out what they might be, something that you can easily remember, something that comes naturally to you. So I think you had given originally the three or four?
Four.
Four. Should we pick four, or doesn't really? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter.
Whatever works for you.
Once somebody came to me and said, I can't remember my phrases. So I said, how many do you have? And she said, about 15. And I said, well, no one can remember 15 phrases. So somewhere between 1 and 4, like that.
1 and 4. Those ones that you had said, can you say them one more time?
May I, which becomes may you, may I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease.
And live with ease. And then, so we picked the phrases, and then what's the other part of it?
We gather all of our attention behind one phrase at a time. So there's a complete, wholehearted presence behind one phrase. And we just repeat them over and over again. You have a sense of the recipient, who is receiving this, which may be yourself or someone else. And you really don't struggle to have a certain emotion or great breakthrough, fantastic feeling happening. The power of the practice is in the complete wholehearted gathering behind one phrase. And then the practice will just take you to all these different places. You offer the phrases to yourself, and then there's a sequence of other beings until you come to all beings everywhere, to all of life.
I have a little bit of a question about, you said that the power is in the sort of the collecting behind the phrase, and not to have, would you say, too much intention or too much, I don't know, whatever, too much. Can you explain that a little bit more? I'm not sure about that.
Well, it's not so much that you don't want much intention, but sometimes people, it's like, first of all, we identify loving kindness with love. We identify love with an emotion. And if we don't have that particular emotion cooking at a certain session, we think we failed. Whereas I know from my own experience and from guiding so many others that the practice can be working even if you don't have that kind of emotional flow going. Of course, we like it. It's lovely when it happens, but something is happening anyway, just from paying attention to the dry cleaner, whomever it is you might usually ignore. Even though you're paying attention in your mind, something is shifting. And you may not notice it when you're sitting there, but you will notice it the next time you go into the dry cleaner. You know, you go into the store, and you'll have a sense of interest in that person rather than just objectifying them.
So when you say you should focus on the phrase itself, sort of as like almost like a concentration or whatever, like to focus on it. And so are you dually focusing on like we'll do it in a minute, but are we dually focusing on the phrase and the person that we're doing it for, both, or?
Well, they say in any given moment, one of three things might be predominant. One is the phrase, one is the sense of the recipient, which may be visual or it may not be. It just depends on your facility with visualization. And one could be the feeling. Now, the feeling comes and goes. The sense of the recipient might be more vague or more acute, but the phrase is like the bottom line. You know, it's what we can always return to. So it's a little bit of foreground, background thing. Which is the foreground? Commonly, it's the phrase. It may be that you're starting to feel really fuzzy or rote, or you feel like you could be saying anything and it's lost its meaning. So then maybe you pick up the sense of the recipient. You say their name to yourself, or you make that clearer in your mind. And then, it becomes more alive again.
It's interesting. I like the way it seems clearer to me now to understand that, like, the focus on the key thing is the phrase, and then those other things are just sort of steps or associated with it. But really, it's like always coming back to that phrase.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. So, can we talk about like who the recipients are then?
Yeah, sure. The basic bookends, I would say, if you're doing this practice at home, in contrast to, say, an intensive retreat. In any given session, you might want to start with offering loving kindness to yourself and end with offering loving kindness to all beings everywhere, to all of life. May all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease, or whatever your phrases are. And what you do in the middle might change all the time. Maybe there is a part of the practice, if you're doing it in the classical sequence, someone known as a benefactor, someone who's helped you. Maybe they've helped you directly. They've helped pick you up when you've fallen down, or maybe they've inspired you from afar. But the Buddhist texts say, this is the one whom when you think of them, you smile. It's like an embodiment of loving kindness for you. So who makes you smile? Could be an adult, could be a child. Some people even use a pet. That's the benefactor. There's a time when we offer loving kindness to a friend, someone we feel at ease with, someone we feel comfortable with in that way. We offer loving kindness to a neutral person, somebody we don't strongly like or dislike. This is the dry cleaner, or somebody who works in the supermarket that you go to, so that you actually see them now and then, but you don't have a very meaningful relationship with them. We offer loving kindness to someone who's difficult for us, somebody with whom there's, usually we start with a small amount of conflict or dis-ease, not starting with the person who has just hurt you so horribly in this life, but kind of working our way toward a felt sense of what in the world it might mean to have loving kindness for a difficult person and ourselves at the same time. And then we end with all beings everywhere. So within that, say you're sitting at home for 10 or 20 minutes, you might start with yourself. Maybe you have a friend who's in trouble, and you especially want to include them.
And they would be your benefactor.
Well, no, you just choose that instead of the benefactor. So you might be with yourself, that friend, and then all beings, because that's all you have time for in that sitting. Or you might be sitting and the benefactor comes to mind, and you think, well, I haven't really held them in my heart in a long time. I haven't really appreciated them. And so you might want to especially include them. And maybe you have time for someone else as well. Maybe not. And then you close with all beings. So it's that middle part of the daily sitting that's really the place for being creative and, just seeing what's most relevant for you.
So again, you're saying it's kind of malleable. You can kind of figure it out what works best for you, or what needs to be done that day. But generally, if we're going to do it in a general way without any sort of specialization, we might choose to do like the 5. So the bookends would be ourselves and the all beings everywhere, and then in between would be the benefactor.
I don't think people...
You don't even think it has to be that specific?
No, I think people don't have enough time, actually. Unless you're sitting for some substantial period of time each day, I think it's good to have experience with all of those different aspects. So it would be yourself, the benefactor, a friend, a neutral person, someone you don't strongly like or dislike, and a difficult person. And then all beings, so that as you go on, you might plug in. But I think for most people, given how given the length of our daily sitting, trying to do all of them is going to be kind of jumpy. Because remember, we're trying to focus and have some concentration with this.
Yeah. So let's try to give a few minutes and try to practice it. You can sort of lead me in, and then we'll have like a little silence, and then pull me out.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be completely like, no, I'm completely different planet.
Okay, so we say sit comfortably. You can see if your back can be straight without being strained or overarched. You can close your eyes or not, however you feel most at ease. Just let your energy settle into your body. See if there are 3 or 4 phrases that work for you. I usually say good enough phrases. Being words, they won't be perfect, but they can guide your attention to be more open and more caring. So phrases like, may I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And you choose these phrases, whatever they are, and just begin gently repeating them over and over again with enough space and enough silence so that it's a rhythm that's pleasing to you. Gather all of your attention behind one phrase at a time, and then the next. And when you find your attention wandering, really don't worry about it. We say the most important part of any practice is the next moment. It's the moment after we've been distracted, after we've been lost, where we practice letting go and we practice beginning again. Just bring your attention back to the phrases, beginning with yourself. May I be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And see if you can call to mind a benefactor. That is someone who, when you think of them, you smile. Maybe you've met them, maybe you haven't met them. But if someone comes to mind, you can bring them here. Get an image of them or say their name to yourself. Get a feeling for their presence and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease, or whatever your phrases are. And the first friend who comes to mind, bring them here and offer the phrases of loving kindness to them. May you be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. then all beings everywhere. All people, all creatures, all those in existence, near and far, known and unknown. May all beings be safe, be happy, be healthy, live with ease. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
Wow.
How was that?
Good. You know, one of the things that always happens to me is whenever I try to do this practice is I always have an issue with, I can never find a benefactor, because every benefactor I always have some negative thing with. If it's not something personal to them, it might be like how I did something. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, but then there was this time that I did this or something happened, and I always have a really difficult time with finding a benefactor.
Well, you know,
You're like, yeah, and?
one of the reasons that I emphasize the phrases so much is to appreciate sometimes we have a foreground background thing going on, where even though issues might arise or hesitations might arise or memories might arise, things like that, we try to have them be more in the background as we use the phrases as the conduit for our awareness. Because, in fact, relationships are complicated, and we're not calling to mind like a composite figure of, you know, somebody who's struggling and trying to elicit compassion for them. You know, these are real people and or beings. It could be an animal, you know, so that's why we say beings when we're being accurate, you know. And relationships are complicated. We're complicated. You know, many times somebody will call a benefactor to mind and everything will be going along swimmingly, and then they'll think, you know, there was that one time when I called them and they weren't really there for me. Maybe they're not my benefactor. Maybe they're my difficult person. And it's all so intricate and real. And that's why we need a way through the intricacies of relationship, and that's the phrases.
Do you think that maybe, I mean, you didn't say this at all, but do you think that maybe we should pick like a more abstract benefactor, like someone who we don't know on a personal level, you know? So like if I pick somebody who, you know, was a teacher from a book or, you know, somebody I didn't know very well, then I wouldn't have those complicated feelings.
I think you'd have other complicated feelings, you know. I think it's just complicated.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of times people will say something to me like, I picked the Dalai Lama as my benefactor, and I was going along, and then I had the thought, wait a minute, what does he need me for? You know, it's like, he's the Dalai Lama. And I always find that interesting. First of all, how do we know that? For all we know, somebody like him is completely nourished every single day by the prayers and well-wishing of others. And also, what an interesting thought, like what I have to give is so nothing. It's so negligible. It couldn't possibly contribute anything meaningful.
To someone so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's always some issue or another.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why it's so important to keep coming back to those phrases. So regardless of wherever our mind goes with the benefactor or the neutral person or ourselves or whatever it is, that's why it's so important to just keep coming back, because then you don't get derailed by
That's right.
whatever the thoughts are going on or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it seems like this practice is really, like, really beneficial. Do you think that this practice could be someone's sole practice, or do you think it should be part of like a larger practice?
Well, I went to Burma in 1985, especially to do loving kindness practice, which I'd done before, but never in a structured, guided way. So I went to Burma and did 3 months of loving kindness practice. And that became my only practice for about 4 years. So that was all I did, whether I was on retreat or I was sitting at home each day. So it could be. Most people I know tend, including myself, tend to do some kind of awareness practice, some kind of mindfulness practice, and some kind of loving kindness or compassion practice, and sort of mix and match in terms of proportionality or whatever.
Day by day or whatever.
Yeah, like these days, I still sit every day, and mostly my formal practice is a mindfulness practice, but I have this resolve to do loving kindness whenever I'm waiting, and I count every mode of transportation as waiting.
So when you were sitting, we're sitting here trying to like change the lighting or whatever, were you doing any?
I did a little bit of loving kindness, yeah. So that's literally waiting, so that's a good example.
Yeah.
And also airplanes or taxis or whatever, walking down the street in New York.
Oh, yeah?
It's really fun.
Huh.
Obviously, you do it silently because,
So we're pretty much out of time here, but I wanted to sort of just take a moment to talk about where people can find you. Mm-hmm. Where can people find you?
Well, my website is SharonSalzberg.com. You just have to spell Salzburg with an E, not a U. It's not like the city. Mm-hmm. And there's a
SALZBERG.
And there's a calendar page, and you can see my schedule. I'm a lot of places. I'm often in New York City.
Yeah. Yes, and we are very happy about that. And you also have a ton of books, so if people...
I do, sort of amazingly enough.
Yeah.
Loving Kindness, which was my first book, is about this particular practice. It's kind of a manual for loving kindness practice, and that came out 20 years ago. First came out 20 years ago.
That's wonderful. And I'm so happy to have you here. We're going to do another segment, but for now, I just want to thank you and thank you for coming and teaching us the loving kindness practice. Thanks.
Thank you.